This is the Wikipedia page for animal grief. Welcome to WikiListen, the podcast where we read Wikipedia pages and provide commentary. My name is Rob P., and I'm your WikiListen current events host. So how is animal grief a current event? Well, a study just came out where scientists observed YouTube videos of elephants displaying what looks like grief and mourning behavior. They found a lot of videos posted online of elephants dealing with deaths of other elephants, and they were able to study it because there was so much more footage than they could just find if they went out in the wild and waited around. So thanks to YouTube, they were able to help these scientists do this study. So here we go. Animal grief. This article has multiple issues. Please help improve it or discuss these issues on the talk page. Learn how and when to remove these template messages. This article includes a list of general references, but it lacks sufficient corresponding inline citations, January 2017. This article's tone or style may not reflect the encyclopedic tone used on Wikipedia, May 2019. Grief is, quote, a multifaceted response to loss, particularly to the loss of someone or something that has died, to which a bond or affection was formed, close quote. Grief is possible in other animals, known as animal grief, similar to survivor's guilt in humans. In the late 19th century, Charles Darwin published The Expression of the Emotions in Man and Animals, in which he argued that all humans, including other animals, show emotion through remarkably similar behaviors. However, grief wasn't the focus of animal research until the late 20th and early 21st century. Mark Bekoff, an American biologist, has spent his time researching emotions in animals, including grief. Studies conducted by Bekoff and other scientists implicate that the following animals may experience grief: wolves, chimpanzees, elephants, dolphins, whales, giraffes, and others. Animal pain. Pain is a complex experience that involves sensory and emotional components. While physical pain in animals has been well documented, it is less clear whether the emotional suffering humans feel can be said to be true of animals. Animal emotions. Mark Bekoff defines emotion as something that helps behavioral control and management. Bekoff, 2000. It is known that humans have emotions and that it is something fundamental and important in our lives. However, it is hard to say if that is true for animals or just some. Primary emotions and secondary emotions. There are different categories of emotions known as primary and secondary emotions. Bekoff explains that primary emotions are similar to reflex or something along the lines of fear or fight or flight response. Therefore, it is something that animals react to, such as loud noises, unknown objects, or odors. Bekoff, 2000. Having primary emotions is crucial because reactions to these are important for an animal's survival. The part of the brain that is responsible for primary emotions is the limbic system. Bekoff, 2000. Secondary emotions are part of an experience. These emotions are taking part in the central cortex of the brain because of the requirement of different and higher brain centers. With secondary emotions, it allows one, in this case the animals that do feel grief, to create the connection between feelings and actions. Mark Bekoff's research. Mark Bekoff is a professor of ecology and evolutionary biology at the University of Colorado Boulder. He has spent his life studying animals and their emotions, finding that animals grieve quite frequently. Elephants have been observed to stand guard over a stillborn baby for days with their head and ears hanging down. Orphan elephants, who have watched their mothers be killed, have been shown to wake up screaming. Elephants are known to communally recognize a deceased relative similar to how they greet a newborn, by collectively touching its corpse or old bones and possibly wailing. Mourning animals. Elephants. Elephants are a highly cognitive and emotionally engaged animal. Through observational evidence, they seem to have a real unusual interest in the dead of their own species, either flesh, carcasses, or skulls, and the interest seems to persist long after death, says Karen McComb, co-director of the Mammal Vocal Communication and Cognition Research Group at the University of Sussex. She is a behavioral ecologist and an expert in analyzing vocalizations of mammals assessing thoughts and emotions. For that, McComb studies, quote, contact calls, quote, powerful rumbles elephant use to keep in contact for large distances, and plays recordings of these to approaching herds of elephants while observing their reaction to them. These are her clues in her study. When played the call of a missing family member, the elephants were seen running trumpeting toward the speaker, as if they had someone in mind they expected to see. She also used the call of a 15-year-old female elephant who had died and played it twice to her family, once a few months after her death and then 23 months later. That's how it's written. Similarly, the herd ran to her rumbling in greeting, walking directly to the speaker. Quote, "They hadn't forgotten her, but I was uneasy doing that test," close quote, she mentions. Elephants have intensive social natures and retain their memories for many years. They have the adequate neural anatomy for long-term memory. Their brains have large and complex frontal lobes, important structures for storing and retrieving memories of scent, touch, smell, and sound. Poachers often target the matriarchs or older females of the group because they have larger tusks. This is an impactful loss for the group because they lose a lifetime of learning and knowledge. Elephants have a concept of death. For instance, they recognize carcasses and skeletons of their own kind as well as of others. McComb performed experiments in which she placed skulls of elephants killed by poacher to make miniature elephant graveyards in the path of approaching herds. She observed that they took a real interest in skulls and bones of their own kind, touching and investigating the body for hours. The behavior they adopt when encountering their dead relatives varies, says Cynthia Moss, ethologist and director of the Amboseli Elephant Research Project, and who invited McCorn to join her team. Quote, "They stop and become quiet and tense in a different way from anything I have seen in other situations," close quote. Responses of elephants to conspecific carcasses at various stages post-mortem has been intensively documented. They display touching behaviors such as smelling and caressing the remaining body with their hind feet or with their trunk. Initially, the dead might be treated as if it was still alive or unable to move as if injured. It gets carried in order to keep up with the group, tried to be lift up and help stand. That's how it's written, everybody. Such actions reveal the elephant's empathetic and compassionate nature and shows that they do not want to abandon the deceased individual. They have been seen to cover bodies with nearby vegetation as a burial. Out of many others, Sharma described a case of an adult female mother in southern India standing around her dead calf for weeks. The mother later watched from a distance a veterinary team conducting an autopsy on site and remained around 100 meters away from the fire on which the calf's body was cremated. There are tales about elephants' graveyards. These are believed to be places where dying elephants direct themselves to die with their conspecifics. Today, it is believed that these are actually the remainder bones and skeletons of elephants killed by poachers. However, some reports allow the hypothesis that elephants, which are always on the move, may return occasionally to places where a member has been buried. Okay, those are the sections on elephants from the Wikipedia page Animal Grief. Kind of depressing, I gotta be honest with you, but the fact that some of the sentences were very garbled syntax, I guess took away some of the sting, so is that a good thing? This has been the Wikipedia page for Animal Grief, with a focus on elephants. Thanks for listening to WikiListen. You can find us at wikilisten.com and on all social media at WikiListen, except for Twitter, which is at @wiki_listen. If you have an article you'd like us to read, let us know.